Under the cold streetlights of Cleveland, a homeless boy with trembling hands extended an empty paper cup as if waiting for the attention of passersby. He didn't know that in that moment, a meeting would change his entire life. Stay with us to listen to this touching and surprising story. At the same time, let us know where you are listening from. And if you like stories like this, please subscribe to the channel to hear more. The sky was overcast, and gusts of icy wind swept through the narrow alleys, carrying the murmurs of a city that never stopped moving. Along Broad Avenue, the barren skeletal trees swayed under the biting cold. Cars lined up, spewing exhaust, while footsteps crunched over snow-laden mud, creating a chaotic symphony of urban life. Sam, a frail boy with unkempt hair, sat huddled on the edge of a sidewalk near a convenience store. His thin, worn-out jacket flapped helplessly in the wind, revealing reddened hands, raw from the cold. Beside him sat a battered paper cup on the ground. Inside, only a few cold coins clinked softly against one another with every slight movement. The boy didn't speak or even look up. Occasionally, his eyes darted quickly to the shoes passing by, polished leather, elegant high heels, and pristine white sneakers that he could only dream of wearing. No one stopped. A man carrying a leather briefcase glanced at Sam, frowning slightly. A busy woman typing on her phone didn't even turn her head. "Get out of here," a gruff voice barked. Sam lifted his head, startled to see a large, overweight man in a dark, long coat glaring down at him with disdain. "You're making the streets filthy." Sam dropped his gaze, reaching for his paper cup, but before his fingers could touch it, the man kicked it away. Coins scattered loudly across the pavement. A few onlookers paused, their curiosity piqued, but no one intervened. Flustered, Sam scrambled on the ground to collect the coins, his small hands trembling from the cold and humiliation. "Get lost!" the man bellowed, stepping menacingly closer to Sam. But at that moment, a tall figure stepped in between them. "That's enough!" a calm yet firm voice rang out, quiet but commanding enough to make the man freeze. Barron Trump, composed and resolute, locked eyes with the larger man. Without raising his voice, his sheer presence made the man grumble something under his breath and stomp off. Sam looked up bewildered as Barron crouched down to retrieve the paper cup and handed it back to him. "Are you okay?" Barron asked, his gaze steady on the boy. Sam shook his head but remained silent. He pulled the cup closer, shrinking into himself as though trying to avoid the stranger's gaze. But Barron didn't leave. Instead, he sat down at Sam's level, unfazed by his expensive coat brushing against the dirty ground. "What's your name?" Barron asked gently. "Sam," the boy replied, so softly it was almost inaudible. "How long have you been sitting here?" Barron continued, neither rushing nor showing any hint of pity. Sam looked down at his battered shoes. "A while," he murmured. Barron didn't speak right away. He glanced around, taking in the curious stares, the distant phones held up to record, and the indifference of others passing by. Then his gaze returned to Sam, calm yet resolute. "Are you hungry?" Barron asked. Sam gave a small nod. Barron stood, extending a hand toward the boy. "Come on, let's find something to eat." Sam hesitated, clutching the paper cup as though afraid of losing the little he had. But under Barron's encouraging gaze, he placed the cup down and stood up. No one could have known that this small gesture marked the beginning of a journey Sam had never dared to imagine. At that moment, amid the cold and the indifferent crowd, it was simply one outstretched hand and a boy brave enough to take it. The wind chime jingled softly as the door of a roadside fast food restaurant swung open. Warm air from inside rushed out, chasing away some of the cold from the street. Barron held the door open for Sam to step in first. The boy moved hesitantly, his demeanor cautious, as if he didn't belong there. Sam glanced around. Soft, yellow lights reflected off spotless tables. The aroma of food lingered in the air, and curious eyes followed his every step. "Sit here," Barron said, pointing to a small table in the corner. Sam nodded and sat down gingerly, his hands resting on his lap, gripping his thin coat so tightly that his fingertips turned white. A waitress approached, her polite smile slightly faltering when she noticed Sam. "What can I get you?" she asked, her gaze shifting toward Barron. "I'll have a hamburger, fries, and 2 hot milks, please," Barron responded, his tone calm but firm. The waitress nodded and walked away without another word. Sam remained silent, his eyes wandering across the table, occasionally pausing on other customers, people who stole glances at him but pretended not to notice. Barron pulled out the chair opposite Sam, sitting down with ease, but his eyes stayed fixed on the boy. "Do you come here often?" Barron asked gently, breaking the silence. Sam shook his head. "Never," he replied softly. "People don't want me here." Barron tilted his head slightly. "They told you that?" Sam didn't answer immediately. He looked down at his thin, trembling hands. "They don't need to say it. I just know. People don't like kids like me." Barron stayed quiet for a moment, as if considering something. Then he reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, placed it on the table and slid it towards Sam. The boy looked up at him with surprise. "Take a picture of me," Barron said, a faint smile on his lips. Sam frowned, his expression puzzled. "A picture? Why?" "No reason," Barron replied. "I just want to see how you see things through a lens." Sam hesitated, then reached for the phone. His hands trembled as he gripped the device carefully, as if it were the most precious object he had ever touched. He looked at Barron through the screen, his thumb slowly pressing the capture button. The soft click of the shutter broke the silence, and for a brief moment, Sam's eyes lit up. Barron leaned over, looking at the picture. He smiled. "It's good. You have talent." Sam didn't respond, but the corner of his lips twitched slightly. It wasn't a clear smile, but it was the beginning of something else. A faint glimmer of light in the darkness. The waitress returned, setting the tray of food on the table. Sam stared at the hamburger in front of him, his eyes wide, as if it was something out of a dream. He reached out to touch it, then quickly pulled his hand back, glancing at Barron. "Eat," Barron said. "Don't worry." Sam picked up the hamburger and took a small bite. The rich taste of beef, melted cheese, and soft bread made him almost forget to breathe. He couldn't remember the last time he'd had a meal like this. "Is it good?" Barron asked. Sam nodded, his mouth still full, but he quickly stopped, placing the burger back on the tray, his face filled with guilt. "I can't eat it all, it's too expensive," Barron chuckled, not loudly, but enough to make Sam look at him confused. "Are you worried about my wallet?" Barron asked, his tone tinged with humor. Sam didn't reply, lowering his head instead, his face turning red. Barron sighed, leaning forward. "Sam, listen to me. I didn't bring you here to make you feel like you owe me anything. You have the right to eat a full meal, to feel warm, just like anyone else out there." Sam stayed silent, his gaze fixed on the burger. Yet he couldn't deny that Barron's words warmed something deep inside him, even if just a little. Outside the glass window, dim streetlights cast soft reflections on the snowy pavement. Barron looked at the boy in front of him, and in that moment he knew he had done the right thing. This wasn't just a meal. It was a small step for Sam to begin seeing his own worth. Evening was falling, and the streetlights glittered on the thin layer of snow covering the ground. Sam walked slowly behind Barron along the quiet street, clutching the paper bag that held the leftover fries from their earlier meal. His small frame blended into the chilly air, but his eyes kept darting toward the young man walking beside him. "Do you live here?" Sam asked hesitantly. Barron glanced at him and gave a small smile. "Not really. I'm here for work, but I grew up in New York. Have you heard of New York?" Sam nodded, his eyes lighting up with curiosity. "I saw it on TV. Lots of tall buildings." Barron chuckled, a short but warm sound. "That's right. Tall, but also noisy. Would you like to go there someday?" Sam stayed silent. After a moment he replied softly, "Probably not." "I don't think I'd fit in." Barron stopped walking and turned to the boy. "Why do you think that?" Sam looked down at his worn-out shoes, their condition telling his story for him. I'm not like the people there." Barron crouched down so that he was eye level with Sam, his voice steady and filled with patience. "Sam, you don't have to be like anyone else. You just need to be yourself. Sometimes all it takes is a small chance to discover who you really are." Sam didn't answer. He lowered his head, his gaze drifting toward the small stream of water trickling along the street, reflecting the twinkling lights from a nearby store. "Have you ever thought about what you'd like to do when you grow up?" Barron asked, his tone gentler this time. Sam shook his head, then paused. "I used to want to be an artist," he said, his voice carrying the weight of a secret. "An artist?" Barron asked, surprised. "So, did you draw?" Sam shrugged. "Not anymore. I don't have paper or pencils. And I don't think anyone would care." Barron studied him for a moment, then stood up. "Wait here for a minute." Sam looked up, confused, but didn't ask any questions. Barron walked quickly into a nearby store. A short while later, he returned, holding a sketch pad and a box of colored pencils. "Here," Barron said, handing them to Sam. "Consider this a small gift. Draw whatever you want, okay?" Sam took them with trembling hands, his eyes a mix of gratitude and disbelief. "Really? I keep these? They're yours. But you have to promise me something," Barron said, crouching down again, his gaze serious. "Promise me you'll use them to find your dreams again, no matter how small they might seem." Sam looked down at the sketchpad, then back at Barron. In that moment, amidst the cold night air, he nodded. A small seed had been planted in dry, barren soil, waiting for the day it would sprout. Sam stood in front of the door to the Hope Outreach Resource Center. A slightly tilted wooden sign above the door bore the faded words, "Hope for Everyone." A few people were coming and going, carrying bags in their hands, their eyes showing faint traces of weariness, yet also glimmering with something indescribable. Hope. Sam clutched a small piece of paper in his hand, the address Barron had written down, holding it as though it were a talisman. He hesitated. His palms were damp with sweat despite the chilly weather. Behind this door lay something unfamiliar. Help. Sam had never stepped foot into a place like this. He was used to facing the world on his own, even when failure had become a constant companion. The door suddenly opened, and a middle-aged woman with neatly cropped hair stepped out. She wore a grey sweater and a red scarf, her face calm, but not cold. She stopped when she saw Sam standing there. "Do you need help?" she asked warmly, her tone unhurried. Sam looked up, his eyes flickering between confusion and fear. I was told to come here by Barron," he stammered, holding up the piece of paper. The woman glanced at the paper, then smiled, her gaze softening. "So you're Sam, aren't you? Come in. We've been expecting you." Sam stepped inside, his heart heavy with anxiety, though his feet didn't turn back. Inside, The space was brighter than he had expected. The cream-colored walls were adorned with paintings, images of people at work, smiling faces, and a large landscape of a sunlit field. "My name is Rose," the woman introduced herself as she led Sam down the hallway. "Here, we help people get a fresh start. You don't need to worry about anything, okay?" Sam nodded, though his eyes remained fixed on the floor. Laughter floated softly from a nearby room, making him pause. "We have an art class here once a week," Rose said, noticing Sam's gaze lingering on the room. "You can join if you'd like." Sam said nothing, but his hand instinctively tightened around the bag holding the sketchpad Barron had given him. Rose guided him into a small room with a simple wooden table and 2 chairs. A man with glasses and graying hair was waiting there. "Sam, this is Mr. Michael. He'll help you make a plan," Rose said before leaving Sam and Mr. Michael alone. "Hello, Sam," Mr. Michael greeted, his voice deep but friendly. "You can take a seat. We'll just talk for a bit. Nothing to worry about." Sam reluctantly sat down, his wary gaze resembling that of a small animal caught in a trap it didn't understand. Mr. Michael pulled out a notebook and began asking simple questions about Sam's life: where he came from, how long he'd been on the streets, and why he was there. At first, Sam answered briefly, almost in whispers, but Mr. Michael's patience and non-judgmental demeanor gradually coaxed more out of him. Sam spoke about nights spent sleeping on park benches, the cold that numbed his body, and the first time he met Barron. When he mentioned Barron, his voice warmed slightly, as if that memory were the only bright spot in his story. "He brought me here," Sam concluded, his voice trailing off. Mr. Michael nodded, jotting a few notes in his notebook. "Barron did a wonderful thing, but from now on, you'll need to take the first steps yourself. We'll help you, but you also have to be ready to change." Agreed. Sam didn't answer immediately. He looked down at his hands, then back up, his gaze no longer entirely avoiding Mr. Michael's. "I'll try," he said, his voice small but firm. Mr. Michael smiled and nodded. "That's the first step, Sam. We'll start from here." In that small room, with warm light streaming through the window, Sam didn't realize he had just taken his first step on a new path. He couldn't yet see where it would lead, but for the first time in a long while, he felt something. Hope. Sam sat in the corner of the classroom, gripping a pencil tightly. In front of him was a blank sheet of paper, slightly creased at the corner from his trembling hands. Around him, the quiet murmurs of other children filled the room, accompanied by the soft sounds of crayons scraping against paper, creating vibrant strokes of color. "Just start with whatever feels easiest for you," said a gentle voice. It was Ms. Megan, the art teacher. She stood near Sam, not too close to pressure him, but close enough for him to feel she was there. Sam gave a small nod, his eyes still fixed on the paper. After a while, he lifted his pencil and began sketching faint lines. His movements were clumsy, as though his hands were unfamiliar with the act of drawing. He drew a straight line, erased it, and drew again. A faint smile flickered across his lips as he realized his hands were slowly rediscovering a feeling they hadn't known for a long time. "Can I see?" a small voice asked from his right. Sam looked up and met the curious gaze of a boy with curly hair holding a sketchbook in his hands. Sam flinched slightly. He wasn't used to anyone showing interest in what he was doing. Not yet. I'm just trying," he mumbled. "That's okay," the boy replied with a grin. "I'm Leo. Are you new here?" Sam nodded. "Yeah, I'm Sam." "What are you drawing?" Leo asked. Sam glanced down at his paper, where faint, uncertain lines had started to form the shape of a large tree with gnarled branches. "I think I'm drawing a tree," he said hesitantly. Leo leaned closer, his eyes brimming with curiosity. "It's nice. I like how you're drawing the branches, like they're reaching out." Sam blinked in surprise. This was the first time anyone had commented on his drawing, not with mockery, but with genuine interest. "You think so?" Leo nodded firmly. "Yeah, I draw a lot, but I've never thought about drawing branches like that. You'll have to teach me." Sam let out a small laugh, a rare sound from him. "I don't know how to teach. I'm not even sure I'm doing it right." "That doesn't matter," Leo shrugged. "Just draw. It's not about right or wrong. It's about what you feel." Those words made Sam pause. He looked at Leo, then back at his drawing. A strange feeling stirred inside him, as if someone had just opened a door he didn't even know existed. At the end of class, Sam carefully tucked his drawing into his bag, treating it like something precious. He didn't want it to get crumpled or ruined, didn't want anyone to harm it, just as he had been hurt before. On his way back to his room at the center, Sam saw Ms. Rose standing in the hallway. She smiled when she saw him. "How was your day, Sam?" she asked. "It was good," he replied softly. "I drew. Would you like to show me?" Rose tilted her head slightly, her gaze gentle. Sam hesitated for a moment, then pulled out the paper and handed it to her. Rose studied the drawing intently, then looked up, her smile unchanged. "You did really well, Sam. This tree, I think it tells a story." Sam frowned slightly. "A story?" "Yes," Rose said. "This tree looks strong, but it also seems like it's been through a lot. Are you drawing yourself?" Sam didn't answer. He took back the paper, feeling as though something had just been explained to him, something he hadn't realized before. As he walked back to his room, holding the paper tightly for the first time, he felt like he had something worth protecting. Sam stood on the high school steps, observing the bustling schoolyard as students headed home. While others hurried, he lingered, taking in every detail, the posters, the scuffing of shoes, and sunlight filtering through the trees. These once distant experiences now felt real, part of his life. A familiar voice brought him back to reality. Leo asked why he was standing still, and Sam, with a faint smile, reassured him he was fine. As they walked toward the bus stop, Sam noticed Barron standing calmly nearby. Surprised, he told Leo to go ahead and approach Barron, feeling slightly awkward. Without a word, Barron handed Sam a leather notebook filled with blank pages, saying he believed Sam would need it. When Sam asked how Barron knew he still drew, Barron smiled, saying he didn't need to know, he simply believed. Sam thanked him not just for the notebook, but for everything, his voice trembling with emotion. Barron placed a steady hand on Sam's shoulder, reminding him that the real change came from within Sam himself. Barron had merely opened the door. It was Sam who stepped through. Before leaving, Barron asked Sam to promise that one day he would be the first to believe in someone else. Sam, feeling the weight of trust and responsibility, promised with shining eyes. As Barron walked away, Sam clutched the notebook and boarded the bus with determination. Sitting by the window, he opened the notebook and let his pencil trace unsteady lines. A young tree stretching skyward, a promise for the future. For the first time, Sam knew he was on the right path, and his journey had only just begun. As the bus rolled forward, Sam stared out the window, watching the golden sunlight paint the city in warm hues. In his hands, the leather notebook felt both grounding and inspiring, a symbol of hope and a reminder of the journey ahead. The young tree on the page wasn't just a drawing, it was a promise, a testament to resilience and belief. Sam smiled faintly, knowing this was only the beginning of a brighter future. What about you? Have you ever had someone believe in you when you needed it most? Or have you been that person for someone else? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your story. If you enjoyed this journey of hope and transformation, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon to stay updated on more inspiring stories like this. Together, let's spread hope and positivity, one story at a time. Thank you for watching.